At the Belle Reve Penitentiary, General Rick Flagg Sr. and Amanda Waller observe a GBS news report covering the Sons of Themyscira's crossing into Pokolistan's border. They plan to collapse the border so the Amazonian sorceress Cersei can lead them to Themyscira. She has promised to give them the Themysciran land, which is inhabited only by women. The Sons of Themyscira are violently revolting against the Pokolistan forces and express their anti-feminist ideology. Rick is disgusted by the Sons of Themyscira, but Amanda Waller is concerned about a serious issue as Pokolistan is a friend of USA. With the country's princess Ilana Rostovic's negotiations with the United States regarding petroleum deposits put under fire by Cersei's organization, Waller introduces Flagg to a new task force that will overthrow them. Flagg is surprised to learn the existence of a secret task force, but Waller explains that to comply with the United States Congress measure that prohibits Argus from enrolling humans into task forces, monsters were chosen instead, the Belle Reve Non-Human Internment Division. She introduces Rick Flagg to the Bride of Frankenstein, who is as cocky as ever, Dr. Phosphorus, who has an irradiated skin which can burn through people and objects, the Weasel, one of the few survivors from Project Starfish and Corto Maltese, where even Rick Flagg lost his son to the war, G.I. Robot, who has killed over 300 Nazis in World War II. Last but not least, Nina Mazursky, the smartest and most reasonable of the bunch, who comes to full power when she is in water. The duo enters the captive cabin and the monsters attack Rick and Amanda, and in a jiff, they all fall down unconscious from the electric shock Amanda gave them with her detonator. Amanda Waller officially hands over Task Force M, nicknamed the Creature Commandos, to Rick Flagg. Task Force M, led by Rick Flagg, gets on a special aircraft and flies directly to Pokolistan. On the flight, they express their displeasure and sarcasm regarding the mission and the whole situation, while the Weasel takes a piss on Dr. Phosphorus's leg. They reach Pokolistan and are escorted by a heavily armored fleet to the royal castle. They notice that the Pokolistani people are still living in the 20th century. The group reach the royal castle and finally meet the Princess Rostovic, who is in charge of the country, and Flagg is love-struck at Rostovic. Her royal guard accuses Flagg of performing the wrong bow to the princess and orders an attack on them, but the guards break down with laughter as they have played a practical joke on them, just like the Americans. The princess invites the honored guests for a special banquet organized to welcome them. She introduces her frail mother, who is officially the queen, but not for long as it seems. The group gulps down the food and the drinks as they have only been allowed prison food for the past years. The princess wants Flagg to address her by her first name, Ilana. After the banquet, Flagg converses with Rostovic, while Mazursky promises to aid G.I. Robot in killing Nazis. Flagg assures the princess that Weasel is not a threat, and he is just too playful. They exchange details of their personal lives, as he mentions that he would have liked to introduce his deceased son to her. Rostovic replies that she prefers older men, inviting him to her bedroom. At the bedroom, Princess Ilana undresses herself and tries to make love with Flagg, but wisely, Flagg avoids Rostovic's advances, excusing himself to come up with a cogent plan for the next day. Deep into the night, Mazursky takes a bath in the tub deep in her own world, and suddenly goes out and sees the bride sneaking out of the building. With no options left, Mazursky goes with the bride, who gets money from the guard on duty at the gate. Flagg wakes up from a deep sleep and catches Dr. Phosphorus in the act, who attempted to steal the nanobomb remote detonator, escalating the situation into a violent fight. The duo goes into a deadly fight where neither gains the upper hand. Soon, they break the floor and it falls down on the downstairs kitchen, sending the cooks running for their lives. They still don't give up on the fight, and even Princess Ilana comes to check on the commotion. Finally, Flagg gets a hold of the remote and Dr. Phosphorus begs for mercy. Flagg scolds him afterward, reminding him that they're supposed to be on the same team. Meanwhile, the bride and Mazursky reaches the Frankenstein manor where the bride was born. They eventually step into the manor, while a woman watching from the nearby lookout house afar reports the incident to Eric Frankenstein, who is partying on a yacht and has long been awaiting the arrival of his beloved bride. We now take a journey to the past. On a stormy night in 1831 at Frankenstein Manor, mad scientist Dr. Victor Frankenstein faces mounting pressure from his creation Eric to craft a mate for him. Victor is extremely hesitant to proceed with the experiment, But his so-called son wants to taste life, just like a normal human being. Victor presents all the morgue body pieces, and Eric falls in love with one head. Unable to refuse, Victor ultimately succeeds in bringing a bride to life using his electrifying science, and Eric is waiting impatiently. In the present day, the bride and Nina are going through the ruins of Frankenstein Manor, and Nina is puzzled by the bride and her behavior. She goes through the rooms while having flashbacks to the very beginning where she was born, and shares her memories with Nina. Back in the past, the newly awakened woman, aka the bride, panics upon seeing Eric, her confusion fueling his heartbreak. Over the following weeks, Victor takes on the task of teaching the bride to speak, much to Eric's frustration. One night, after yet another failed attempt to win her affection, Eric violently confronts Victor in a fit of jealousy and anger, chastising him for the bride's rejection before storming off in tears. The bride tries to console Victor, who is thrown against the bed. Meanwhile, the Sons of Themyscira detects the presence of two women from the castle in the Frankenstein Manor and convey the message to their leader, the Amazonian sorceress, Cersei. She orders them to get ready for an ambush while she eats away at her dinner. The bride starts looking for something, turning the already destroyed room upside down. Nina questions her and joins in the hunt for a missing necklace. After sustaining injuries in his earlier brawl with Dr. Phosphorus, Rick Flag Sr. is tended to by Princess Ilana. Rick is still mad at the group for going against his orders. The princess carefully tends to all the cuts and bruises on his body while flirting with him unknowingly. Although Rick resists her advances, the princess nearly threatens him with her soon-to-be royal powers. The interaction soon escalates into an intimate encounter, just like wild animals in heat, overheard by the rest of the team from behind closed doors. Moments later, Alexei arrives to report the disappearance of the bride and Nina Mazursky. However, Phosphorus sarcastically insists that Alexei wait, visibly embarrassed, until Flag and Ilana finish their business. Once the situation is resolved, Flag berates Phosphorus for delaying the news and orders Alexei to drive the team to the missing member's location. Soon, Nina finds a beautiful necklace lodged under some rubble. She hurries up to the bride and hands it over. It seems like the most important thing in the world for her, as the bride remembers her past with Victor with flashbacks here and there. As Victor continues to guide and teach the bride, their relationship evolves into a romantic affair, culminating in Victor giving her a tourmaline necklace as a token of his love. One fateful night, Eric witnesses Victor and the bride banging on the operating table. Consumed by rage and jealousy, Eric resolves to eliminate the obstacle between him and the bride. Taking advantage of her absence, he murders Victor in cold blood. When the bride discovers Victor's mutilated body, she engages in a violent fight with Eric. After overpowering him, she flees the manor, accidentally setting it ablaze in the process. In the chaos, she loses her necklace. Just then, at the Frankenstein Manor, as the bride and Nina retrieve the tourmaline necklace, their mission is interrupted by an ambush from Cersei and the Sons of Themyscira. Although Nina is powerless and has no idea what to do, the bride puts up a fierce fight, taking down several attackers left and right. She forces her way through the attackers and even deals with the magic attacks from Cersei. At the end, she takes Nina with her, jumps down to the ground, and goes on a rampage to kill all the rebel soldiers. But unfortunately, the bride ultimately falls to Cersei's magic during a brutal confrontation. Both she and Nina are overpowered, knocked unconscious, and captured at the end. Just before the very end, the bride remembers everything that happened after Victor's death. In the centuries that followed, Eric relentlessly pursues the bride, determined to win her love by any means necessary. Despite his persistence, she manages to outwit and defeat him in most of their encounters. However, true love continues to seek her. Wheels squeeze to a stop at the Frankenstein Manor as the Task Force M arrives with Rick Flag giving out orders to get ready for combat. Just as the Commandos start running at the manor, G.I. Robot gets a flashback from his past. G.I. Robot participates in his first mission with the Easy Company, led by Sergeant Rock, in occupied Europe during World War II. Not knowing it's an ambush, the sergeant leads the troop towards an enemy bunker, but at the very last minute, their sniper announces that it's a trap, and unfortunately, it's a bit too late for most of the men as the enemy rains bullets over them. But the real surprise is when GI Robot springs into action with his machine guns, massacring the German troops. The sergeant and the men of Easy Company celebrate their new hero. Cheers to the Tin Man. Meanwhile, the Commandos are surprised to find the bride with her mouth gagged and alone, as they were expecting an ambush of some sort. GI Robot finds Nina in the bathtub upstairs, unharmed, but cannot move without water, so he carries the whole tub with her in it. After reprimanding his teammates, Flag realizes that the enemy used this as a distraction to launch an attack against the princess. He orders the lot to turn back and head to the castle with haste. While riding back to the castle, GI Robot gets another flashback. 20 years after the war, GI Robot is invited to an advertisement talk show where he is presented as a war hero. However, the robot's obsessive mission to find and to kill Nazis make the audience and the host uncomfortable, as his only mission is to find Nazis and eliminate them. Finding no use for him since the end of the war, the US Army lends GI Robot to scientist Will Magnus to help him in his research. During their time in Magnus's workshop, GI Robot expresses his wish to meet with his companions again and to kill Nazis with them, but it seems like his wishes never came true. Decades later, in the 1990s, GI Robot is retrieved in a Hub City shop by war artifacts collector Sam Fitzgibbon, who is overjoyed to have him. He takes GI Robot to his humble house full of pet cats and welcomes him. They spend some quality time together as they grow a good friendship. But when Sam brings GI Robot to a local National Socialist club, the latter realizes he is surrounded by neo-Nazis and gives into his native urges in a jiff. GI Robot massacres the entire participants, including Fitzgibbon. He is later arrested and sentenced to life at Belle Reve after a hearing at the army courthouse. Meanwhile, the princess is woken up from her bed by a guard and taken outside, but he dies immediately with incoming gunfire. She screams and runs in the other direction away from the rebels, but soon she is captured, and the rebels plan to take advantage of her before killing her. She scratches the man's face and locks herself inside a room. The battle is tense outside as the rebels outnumber the royal guards guarding the princess. Soon, the Creature Commandos and Alexei arrive in the middle of the assault against the Poko castle. They descend upon the enemy as Nina receives her airsuit from another guard. The Weasel, the Bride, and Dr. Phosphorus unleash hell on the rebels. The princess manages to gun down her pursuits when they manage to enter her room, and they are well surprised with her move. Surrounded by the enemy, Rick Flag Sr. convinces GI Robot that the enemies are Nazis, leading the android to use his full arsenal against the sons of Themyscira. Full of joy and reliving his best memories, mostly with the Easy Company, GI Robot happily kills off the running, frightened rebels. Unfortunately, GI fails to notice Cersei, who puts an end to his rampage by blowing him up in front of his teammates' shocked face. Princess Ilana cannot handle Cersei's magic powers and battle skills, and she nearly gives up. Before she can kill the princess, she is violently mauled and mutilated by Weasel and Dr. Phosphorus, who come from nowhere to deliver a good pounding on the damn sorceress. Nina retrieves GI's damaged head, who happily celebrates his wish fulfilled to have killed Nazis with her before finally fading away. A defeated Cersei furiously confronts the team, stating they have doomed the world. This statement sends shockwaves through everyone. Even the ever-so-confident Amanda Waller is startled, suddenly feeling dismayed, and, for the first time ever, terror in her eyes. The story begins with a passionate moment as a couple shares a few kisses. General Rick Flag must leave Pokolistan with his company to deliver Cersei the Sorceress to the United States government, represented by Amanda Waller. Princess Ilana, who has developed deep feelings for Rick Flag, hopes he will return to stay with her, but his departure is urgent and unavoidable. Rick Flag Sr. and Task Force M return to the US with the witch as their prisoner. Meanwhile, at Belle Reve, John Economos is approached by Elizabeth Bates, Weasel's lawyer, demanding answers about her client's whereabouts. She soon witnesses the team's return aboard the Osprey. Convinced of Weasel's innocence, Bates confronts Flag, who reluctantly grants her a brief conversation with her client. Weasel just enjoys the snacks that she provides, while Elizabeth and Rick argue about Weasel's identity and crimes. Up in the sky, unbeknownst to the team, Eric Frankenstein has been observing them from a helicopter. Misinterpreting the friendship between Flag and the bride as romantic, he becomes enraged on the spot and takes his anger on the flying assistant. Later, he kills the pilot of the helicopter and crashes it down, focusing on hunting down his new mortal enemy, General Rick Flag. In the interrogation room, Bates shows Weasel photographs of the deceased Sunny Hill school children, urging him to confess the truth. Upon looking at one specific picture, Weasel reminisces as he remembers one of the fondest memories. In a flashback, when Weasel was hiding behind a thick bush in a school backyard where small children were playing, 3 small kids saw him and approached him. Weasel befriends the children after they have won his trust with food and spends the evening playing with them. He means them no harm and simply plays with them. However, a local hermit misinterprets the scene, believing Weasel is attacking the kids and alerts the authorities. In the present, Amanda Waller, John Economos, and Rick Flag Sr. interrogate Cersei in the interrogation room. Using her clairvoyant abilities, the witch explains that her attempt to kill the princess was meant to save the world. Rick and John both try their best to convince Amanda that Cersei is lying and in no way she sees the future. But Waller goes a step ahead and brings in a specialist psychiatrist. According to the psychiatrist, Cersei is not lying, and her ability to see the future is legitimate, as she has no control over what part she acknowledges. Initially skeptical, Waller takes a huge risk in connecting with Cersei. In the process, she is shown a disturbing vision of a dystopian future where Princess Rostovik and Gorilla Grodd, commanding an army of Amethyst Knights, conquer the world, leaving a trail of destruction as they slaughter and impale countless heroes. Horrified, Amanda Waller orders that the Commandos return to Pokolistan and assassinate the princess. Flag, unwilling to harm her due to their bond, refuses the mission and leaves Belle Reve in defiance, much to Waller's frustration. Waller needs a new leader, immediately. At Belle Reve's prison cafeteria, Nina Mazursky is bullied by Kongorilla and his mate for her food ration. The bride and Dr. Phosphorus witness the incident, and the bride takes into action as she beats down the gorilla into a bloody puddle, breaking its jaw and killing him. After defending Nina Mazursky from fellow inmate Kongorilla, the bride is appointed the new field leader. She, along with Nina, Weasel, and Dr. Phosphorus, is tasked with returning to Pokolistan. Meanwhile, Flag attempts to warn the Pokolistani authorities about the princess's planned assassination, but is ignored due to the language barrier. He races back to his own home to get ready, but upon returning home, he is ambushed by Frankenstein, who accuses him of stealing his bride. After a brief fight, the misunderstanding is resolved over tea, where Flag offers a partnership. Eric is overjoyed with the newfound sense of hope and relief as he fully commits to Flag and his mission. He promises to reunite Eric with the bride if the creature helps him thwart Ilana's murder first. During the flight back to Pokolistan, Weasel experiences troubling dreams of his past. Another flashback reveals he and the children venturing into the school's basement after it was discovered by a young boy. They enjoy the newfound secrecy down in the basement, and while playing with matches and alcohol, the kids accidentally start a fire. The local hermit, armed with a shotgun, tries to kill Weasel, but inadvertently shoots the boiler, resulting in an explosion killing him and most of the children. Though Weasel tries to save one child, he is misunderstood by the firefighters as the predator and ultimately wounded and arrested by the police, leaving him deeply distressed as he was not able to save the lives of the children, not even one. In the present, Weasel's restless sleep catches the attention of his teammates. The bride casually remarks that he must be dreaming of chasing squirrels, dismissing his agitation. The next day morning, at the Pokolistan State University, Professor McPherson is doing her class on Themyscira and starts asking questions about it rather intimately from a female student. She then starts teaching about lesbians in Themyscira. Outside, Rick Flag and Eric are watching this closely through the window, and they're thinking, oh my days. Eric and Rick then have to do a little show to go unnoticed from the suspicious college eyes when everyone starts looking at them. They then decide to head to Professor McPherson's house to do some investigation into what's really going on, although Eric only wants to see his bride. Meanwhile, Rick still tries to call on Princess Ilana, but the castle on-call handler turns him down. Eric has a flashback to the day he killed Victor, only for his bride to turn on him with guns blazing. She pushed him into the flames before fleeing. Engulfed in fire, Eric stumbled outside and collapsed into the river, teetering on the brink of death. Later, he was washed ashore, where a dog and a blind gypsy woman found him. She brought him to her home and treated his burn wounds with her homemade remedial cream. As Rick and Eric get down on Professor McPherson's house, they see a woman walking a cat in a leash, and Eric remembers his gypsy days with the woman. That is a very bad omen. At the same time, the Task Force M lands in Pokolistan National Airport and are escorted to the castle by head of Royal Security, Alexei himself. He is chatty and witty as always, and doesn't fail to mention that this visit is very surprising, as Alexei is no fool and can smell a fraud miles away. Rick picks the lock and enters the house with Eric, who is constantly chatting Rick about his bride. Rick orders him to check downstairs while he investigates upstairs. Eric is once again taken aback when he sees a cat playing with a leash in the living room. But the real drama unfolds when Rick discovers the dead body of the real Professor McPherson in her office room, with her throat slit and blood pooled beside her. Rick calls Eric up and they witness the imposter, whoever they may be, entering the house as they get ready to hide, which Eric does not take seriously and annoys Rick very much. But fortunately, Rick was able to call the castle and get Princess Ilana on the line to warn her about the Task Force M coming to kill her. The duo goes halfway down and notice the imposter takes a seat on the couch after feeding the cat and starts playing freaking Xbox. What the bloody murder is going on? Is that just too cool or simply being lazy? Anyway, the imposter slowly turns into a pulp of gooey mass in front of them, and Rick tells Eric it's the dangerous shapeshifter, Clayface. They try to sneak out the door behind him, but Clayface is too cunning to let that happen. He turns back and attacks them, getting hold of Rick and gulping down Eric inside him. Well done, Frankenstein. That helps a lot. Meanwhile, Alexei receives a call from the castle while he is driving Task Force M to the castle. He quickly takes a detour, explaining there's a traffic jam ahead. The group are suspicious, but they don't act on it. Alexei drives them out of the city area and right into the outskirts of the city, where the Royal Army surrounds them with armored vehicles, helicopters, and additional force. As Alexei threatens them with treason, Dr. Phosphorus burns him alive. The group gets out of the vehicle and opens fire on the troops surrounding them, as Nina takes into hiding as always. Rick Flag is finding it hard to counter Clayface as he gets a good beatdown. Eric is stuck inside the monster, but appears from time to time, trying to reach outside the electric plug base. He succeeds and finally electrocutes the monster, knocking him out. He is disappointed to find his friend Rick Flag almost dead from the beatdown, as he has a lot to ask and learn from him. Eric remembers how he started to recover under the care of the gypsy woman, and how happy they were back then as they spent some good times. He once went hunting with the dog Ivan and brought a full turkey for dinner, shot dead from an old shotgun which he liked. He quickly remembers when he fully recovered and decided to start his journey to look for his bride. The gypsy woman cried with a heavy heart, since it would be hard for her to live alone. But Eric locks the dog Ivan outside and does end the gypsy woman's life with an iron pot. A mercy killing, if you must say. The bride goes on a bloody rampage, killing the Pokolistani soldiers left and right, as if they were in fault for her own life problems. So does Dr. Phosphorus, who does some showboating when he gets fully naked, exposing his radiation to an armored tank, destroying it, and killing the soldiers inside in a second. At the end, Nina is still hiding. Weasel runs off, and the bride is looking for her mates through the slum streets of Pokolistan, while the police are looking for the group. We go straight back some years into the past, where now Dr. Phosphorus, whose actual name is Alex, is being taken away in a delivery van and he jumps out of it. Alex gets injured in the process, and two thugs come running after him to catch him back. They drag him into the van and put him in front of their boss, who lights a cigar and threatens Alex. In the present, Dr. Phosphorus secretly watches from a hidden trash bin as two Pokolistan guards pass by. Once the coast is clear, he slowly climbs out, dusts himself off, and begins to walk away. At the Pokolistan Palace, Princess Ilana is furious by the attack of Task Force M, and she orders Sergei not to stop until each of them is caught and killed. Nina is backtracking from the guards, and she accidentally runs into the bride behind a sketchy alleyway. The bride tries to get away with Nina, but there's guards everywhere. They sneak into a nearby brothel while all the night workers are watching them inside with open eyes. The bride threatens the madam of the brothel to hide them until the guards go away, when the guards come inside looking for the two of them. The guards take a quick look around and decide to look somewhere else, since the place looked like the typical brothel in Pokolistan. Nothing out of the ordinary. The bride and Nina decide to wait for the guards for some more time. Meanwhile, Captain Rick Flag is being admitted to critical care as he is in danger of losing his life. Amanda Waller comes in and questions the doctors about what has happened. They explain Rick's critical situation and convey the news of a monster dropping him off at the hospital. They figure out it's Eric Frankenstein and inform the authorities to keep him away from the bride in Pokolistan. At the local airport, the pilots are getting ready to take off a private jet, but Eric has already murdered the two travelers and orders the captain to reach Pokolistan as soon as he can. The Weasel runs away into the jungle and encounters a pack of wolves surrounding him, counting seconds to jump on him. Dr. Phosphorus is trying his level best to evade the police, but all he can do is run and hide whenever he hears the sirens or sees the yellow lights of police search parties. He finally enters a nearby house and inside sees the pictures of the family hanging on the walls and remembers his own past with his lovely family. Alex has a discussion with his wife regarding the people who are funding his research to cure cancer, but his wife does not agree with him. Somehow, down the line, the thugs who were the ones who funded him kill his wife and only son and make him witness their lifeless bodies at the house. They abduct him as he tries to get away. Coming to a total turn of events, Weasel manages to befriend the leader of the wolf pack by playing stick with the beast. The leader immediately takes it, and so does his pack. Later on, Dr. Phosphorus encounters the little girl living in the house who has come downstairs for a midnight snack, and he accompanies the little girl in the kitchen as she eats. But he remembers everything. How Rupert Thorne and his gang killed his family and then brought him down to his lab, ransacked everything, to find the real research reports to send them overseas to their business partners. They mocked him, and finally, locked him inside the nuclear energy reactor and tried to make him nuclear ash while laughing at his dead family. The little girl calls him Skelet now. Prietel Skelet, to be precise. At the Can brothel, the bride starts a fight with the madam of the place, but soon, two men bash into the brothel and take the greeting girl upstairs for a private session, as bride mocks the place as disgusting. Later, they hear the girl screaming as the big man has hit her bloody. Madam tells him to go out, but he shows his metahuman powers and threatens her. Nina rushes in trying to save them by hitting him with a bottle, but the bride has to interfere to even things out. The metahuman attacks the bride, but she comes back and breaks his arm in half, reaches inside his chest, takes his beating heart out, and kills him. They soon leave the place as the greeting girl thanks them. Nina is happy that the bride has a soft spot in her heart to do the right thing. Alex, the converted nuclear man Dr. Phosphorus, then emerges from the lab after melting down the walls, and a beggar runs off screaming at his sight. He then reaches the Rupert Thorne mansion, and after killing the front gatekeeper by melting through his face, Alex goes and greets the Thorne family. He kills Rupert Thorne, his wife, and his children in bloody, cold murder. Alex doesn't stop there, as he goes on to track down each person involved in the killing of his wife and child and kills them cold-blooded. He then goes into the mafia, parties with hundreds, and earns with all the drugs, weapons, and many more businesses owned by Rupert Thorne. Alex and his rampage only end when the Dark Knight, Batman, confronts him one final night. That's it, boy. Good night. Thanks for coming. Amanda Waller spends some time talking to the unconscious Captain Rick Flag, who has all the secrets and keys to her questions. Weasel wakes up the following day, remembers his mission in regard to the princess, and leaves his wolf pack with a heavy heart. Onward he goes to the castle. Eric lands in his motherland Pokolistan and pays the pilots generously. He is determined to meet his bride and end this exhausting chase once and for all. The Weasel and Dr. Phosphorus meet the bride and Nina as they ascend towards the Pokolistan castle to murder the princess as per orders. In a flashback, Nina Mazursky was born with a rare condition that caused her lungs to develop outside her body, making it difficult for her to breathe. Even the nurses are skeptical, but her father, a leading scientist, takes on the challenge of raising her daughter, Nina. Meanwhile, Eric Frankenstein is taking a taxi to the Pokolistan castle while explaining his lifelong hunt for his beloved bride. On the contrary, the driver is on the verge of having a heart attack. Poor guy. The Creature Commandos infiltrate Poco Castle by climbing a tower. Weasel jumps on the guard and the bride takes on from there. massacring the guard and beating him into a pulp, while Eric watches admirably from the courtyard. Inside, they spot security footage showing Ilana Rostovic conversing with a mysterious figure. Shortly after, Eric Frankenstein arrives to deliver Rick Flag Sr.'s message, but is shot by Bride before he can explain himself, seemingly leaving him for dead. Not the way to treat your lover, I'm afraid. Little Nina is wearing an iron suit supporting her lungs in special condition, developed by her father, and her mother Lily cannot take it anymore. She abandons the family, leaving Nina to be raised by her father, Edward Mazursky, a renowned scientist in Star City. The Commandos sneak into the outer perimeter of the royal garden as Dr. Phosphorus goes all out on a guard, burning him to his unkind death. The group then heads to the castle wall, and Dr. Phosphorus needs time to burn through the entire stone wall. Little Nina finds it hard to adapt to the life of a normal child as she lacks energy. Despite building machines to aid her breathing, Edward devotes himself to develop permanent treatment for his daughter's condition. However, the DNA transformation treatment has unintended side effects, transforming Nina into an amphibious metahuman who can only breathe underwater. In Pokolistan, the Commandos sneak into Ilana's private garden with Dr. Phosphorus's help as the princess swims in her pond, with many guards stationed around her garden and pond. Weasel panics after seeing Princess Ilana, as she has always played with him and was kind to him. Hoping to provide her with social interactions, Edward enrolls Nina in a private school, and the school principal does her best to understand Nina's condition. Nina is starstruck after looking through everything at the principal's office. She has just one question, and that's about the lacrosse game. But when she actually plays it in school, she faces countless amounts of bullying by the other girls. Even in the hallways at school, the kids aim relentless bullying at her due to her appearance. In the US, Rick Flag Sr. briefly awakens from his coma to warn Amanda Waller about McPherson. Amanda readily contacts her backups, trying to reach McPherson's residence. One day, overwhelmed by cruelty, Nina comes home and cries for hours in her room. As the rain comes down, she leaves her father a goodbye letter and flees to the sewers and lakes around Star City. Although her father runs outside looking for her, Nina is gone. Unable to approach unnoticed due to the guards, Bride and Phosphorus convince Nina to assassinate Ilana from underwater. She needs a bit of convincing as she is nowhere near of killing anyone, but Nina agrees at the end. Back in the day, as Nina has escaped into the wild, unmanned parts of the city, her existence soon becomes known, leading to her capture by the local police. Her father, Edward, runs to the place where Nina is captured and tries to talk to his daughter one last time. As Edward tries to reach his daughter through the crowd, a police officer shoots him dead, leaving a devastated Nina crying as she is taken away in a water tank.
Nina, you were never a burden.
Step back now!
You were the greatest gift.
Accompanied by John Economos, Waller bursts into the professor's home, discovering both McPherson's and Clayface's remains. Horrified, Waller believes they have been manipulated into targeting Princess Rostovic based on Cersei's vision and urgently calls Poco Castle. Meanwhile, as Nina nears the princess, Weasel, still incapable of differentiating Ilana from the little girl he befriended in the past, jumps into the pond, alerting Ilana. Chaos ensues, and Ilana fatally stabs Nina just before Sergei intervenes and hands Bride a phone. Waller admits they made a grave mistake, leaving Bride devastated as Nina's lifeless body floats to the surface. The princess rises from her kill, soaked in Nina's blood, and walks past them. The remaining commandos are invited back to the castle for explanations. Weasel is praised by the Amethyst Knights for saving the princess, as Dr. Phosphorus is mad at Weasel for messing up everything and getting praised for it. But Bride confronts Ilana in her office. She reveals she recognized Clayface in the security footage and has uncovered Ilana's world domination plot. Ilana attempted to seduce Flag to ensure Cersei's death, fearing her vision would expose the truth. When Flag refused, Ilana sent a knight to spy on the commandos at Belle Reve and hired Clayface to impersonate McPherson, deceiving Flag and Waller into discrediting Cersei. Telling her she knows how much of a monster Princess is, Bride tells Ilana that her motivation for killing her isn't genocidal ambitions, but the fact that she killed her only friend. When Ilana attempts to attack, Bride shoots her in the head, ending the threat. The team leader quickly departs with Phosphorus and Weasel afterwards. Back at Belle Reve, Economos praises Bride for saving the world. As a reward, Waller refurbishes the non-human division, providing them with better equipment and accommodations. Bride is introduced to her new team, which now includes Dr. Phosphorus, Weasel, a reconstructed GI robot, and new members, Nosferatu, Khalees, and King Shark. Somehow, Eric Frankenstein is revealed to be alive, recuperating at the home of the old woman watching over Frankenstein Manor. Sharing a meal with her, he vows to continue pursuing the bride with renewed determination. As he makes his declaration, he grimaces at the soup, calling it disgusting. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more awesome videos. Have a nice day.